I don't care if you are second generation Black, third generation Black, you must supplement your kids' education because they're not getting it in the schools. I don't care how much agitation you do, you have to supplement.
It's like me coming from Botswana to an education system here. You've seen something different as a comparison and a benchmark. So while you may intellectually know your parents fought for this, this and this, you still haven't seen the alternative.
That's true.
So it's actually quite hard to agitate for that because the only thing you know to agitate for is the agitation itself. Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Roots and rigor, rigor and flow. Rigor and flow.
One.
We are approaching the end of season 3, so I'm happy, satisfied and tired, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the thing. I am excited that we've made it to season 3. We're now at the end of season 3. I am overwhelmed in the best possible way by the responses we've received from people listening. So many people that we don't know from around the world have listened.
Yeah.
And I think where in season 1, it was almost like, well, let's just put this out, see who listens. Maybe a few of our friends and family will listen and, that'll be that. And that'll be okay, Actually, what we found is that a lot of people are listening and you suddenly feel the weight of, this is something you have to hold with a certain responsibility and
reverence, right? And care. Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's fun.
You can't just be flinging things out anyhow.
Yeah, people will not let us fling things out anyhow.
No.
They will let us know in the comments, in the WhatsApp messages, in the voice notes and all the things, as they should. So, it's been a great journey so far. I guess there will be people who are tuning in who don't know who we are. So shall we introduce ourselves?
We actually probably should. And so on that note, welcome back to Rigour and Flow with me, Aiwan.
And me, Tamanda. And this is the show where business meets love.
And culture meets critique.
That's correct. I want to get straight into this. Back in season 1, we did an episode on Black British identity and how being Black and British can come with some sort of complicated inheritance. And that episode was definitely our best performing episode so far, wasn't it?
Absolutely. Over 1,000 of you listened and watched the episode, which is incredible.
And also, we got loads of comments and loads of interactions, not least from one of my old school peers who anonymously left a comment, which we dissected in episode 27. And also a bunch of voice notes when we opened up our first ever community voice notes episode in 23, I think it was. We had loads of feedback, but this time and this episode, we wanted to go to one of the first comments we received from someone called Liya-Marie on YouTube. And Leah talked about being from the US, being Black American and raised in the Midwest. And she said not only that the episode offered some great commentary on the Black British experience, but she told us how I study Black history for fun and for my own enrichment, and I learned so much, truly. It's interesting how similarly history unfolded in the States in comparison to the UK. Naturally, she said, they don't teach us anything about modern social studies in the UK, which I believe is intentional. The system is truly global and has done a number on us.
Shake my head.
She did shake her head. She shook her head strongly.
Shook her head.
Didn't quite kiss her teeth, but we can only imagine that she might have been kissing her teeth.
I too shook my head.
I want to know. Yeah.
So when we were reading Liya-Marie's comment at the time, I remember my first reaction was, she's right.
Yeah.
I agree. And it got us reflecting on our own educations and what we were taught growing up. I was obviously educated in the British education system. I don't know if you want to talk to...
I mean, I was educated first and foremost in Botswana, then in Northern Ireland, and then in England. So I kind of had 3 different systems, which, we could get into. But what I'm really interested in is your experience. And the reason for that is... you've been in one education system,
yes,
but both as a student and something other people may not know is that you've also been a teacher
Absolutely.
in the British education system.
Yeah, so I've seen both sides.
You have.
Oh Lord, I've seen both sides.
Yeah. And I want to know on that basis, like, what is it that felt true to you about Liya-Marie's comment, and how did you relate or make sense of it?
Yeah, I think that where I want to start with that is I agree that she's correct on it being intentional, that we're not taught certain things. But I think the thing I wanted to throw in is that the mistake we make is relying on the government for things that they were never designed to do. I think
As in the education system was never designed to do.
Yes, exactly.
So do you mean with respect to Black history specifically?
I think any history that is outside of the status quo. So, even if you're a white working class person, are they really going to teach you the roots of working class communities? Because if they
Class
did,
struggle and Marxism.
because if they did, you'd be at the doors of Parliament smashing stuff down.
Instead of outside an asylum seeker's hotel room.
Exactly. Do you see what I mean? So the government education that you're given, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, so please take it with a pinch of salt, throw it over your left shoulder, whatever you've got to do. But in my opinion, I feel like it is a status quo education that is designed to uphold the status quo and the system, and to give you an education enables you to be a functioning member of society. So to be able to read, to be able to write, to have a basic general understanding of your country's history with a little bit of PR campaign.
A little bit, a lot
spin,
of PR campaign. So
bit of
far, I
spin.
haven't disagreed with anything you've
You know
said,
what I mean?
honestly.
A bit of PR in there, a bit of spin on the history side of things, and to give you a rough understanding of the world in terms of where countries are on the map and roughly who lives in them and what the habitats are. And then, science as well. So you have an understanding of an entry-level understanding of science. If you want to go further, then you go and pick that subject at A-level and or at university, right?
Right.
So I'm referring to statutory education. So in the UK, you have to be in education until the age of 16, and you have to stay in education or some form of like apprenticeship until 17. After that, everything else is voluntary education.
I definitely agree with a lot of what you're saying. And I think the other piece is that a lot of the Department for Education is quite obsessed with things like community cohesion and educating people to be good law-abiding citizens.
Yep.
And it's this very narrow conception, not necessarily framed around critical thinking, even though there's a lot of talk about wanting to advance critical thinking. It's like, how can we stop you getting in trouble with the law?
Yes.
And how can we... cohesion is like, how can we get all these different people from these different cultures that have come here to get along? But like, let's not talk about power or anything that might be perceived divisive or challenging or whatever.
Yeah.
We could go in on that. I also, I did a master's in education, so I feel like I've also spent a lot of time thinking about these issues. But I guess
values was a big thing at one point in my education.
Lord.
And you'd go into school and there'd be like a massive, they have like these display boards with the sort of curly frame on the edges. And then in big bubble, right, and it'd say British values. And of course, there'd be like different things in there that school had decided were British values, and also the curriculum had decided were British values, and they'd be up there. And it was really interesting to see what different schools. So sometimes I worked at different schools. So you'd go into different schools and see what they had decided were British values. And it really depended on if you were in a white working class school versus a school in inner city London, predominantly say black or whatever, versus like maybe a grammar school or whatever. It's very interesting.
wow, you're a bit like an Ofsted inspector or something. You would have
Oh,
seen
yeah.
as a supply teacher, I'm
I
imagining.
came in like Sherlock Holmes with my magnifying glass, really inspecting all the different display boards.
Yeah, wow. British values aside, which obviously never talked about colonialism, or slavery. Let's go into what it was like as a student before we get into the teacher part. So yeah, like how does your student experience relate to what Lisa or Liya-Marie was saying?
For me, the government education this is what I believe, and I believe that our foremothers and forefathers believe the same thing. The government education should always be supplemented by an education that comes from your family and your community and your environment, right? Without that, you're not going to get the most well-rounded, most robust, critical, education that is laced with critical thinking and true understanding about not just the world, but also about you and your place in the world.
Agreed.
And so going back, I think about the Caribbean community who set up supplementary education for their sons and daughters.
Precisely because they knew that the state was not meeting the needs of their children, but not only not meeting the needs, creating active harm. So if you go back to the origins of the supplementary school movement in the UK, you have people like Bernard Cord, who wrote this book about how the British education system makes Caribbean children educationally subnormal, particularly boys, right? By excluding them from school because they see them as boisterous or too loud or too this, et cetera, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's been films that have been made about it. In fact, we ended up doing a podcast that was the companion podcast to the Small Act series by Steve McQueen. And one of the episodes of the actual TV series was about these schools for the educationally subnormal and a mother's fight to get her son out of it.
Wow.
And so, so they set up these supplementary schools. They were also known as Saturday schools because it often obviously happened on a Saturday. And in those schools, the kids would learn everything from Black history, maths, science, reading, writing, arithmetic, the whole works. They would learn all of these things, but it was grounded in culture, right? The teachers looked like you. The teachers cared about you. They didn't see you as educationally subnormal. They were embedded in your community, so they knew your folks and your folks knew them. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And when you're on road, they see you and you see them. There's something
it's
about
part of the
that.
village and how the village learns together, really, in a sense, isn't it?
Exactly.
Didn't Akala famously go to a Saturday school?
Yeah, he did. And you can see the results.
Well, a great
his mind
thinker.
is
he is sharp,
like razor sharp. You know, he knows his stuff, and he can stand toe to toe with anyone who wants to face off with him and tell him otherwise. Yeah, exactly. So and so they were supplementing the education of their children in their communities on Saturdays, right? But it wasn't just that. It was also things for the kids to do as well, to come together and socialize. So it was also going to events, going to parks, going to fairs, dances, preparing for carnival, art, music, steel pans.
That
often was taught in some of those Saturday schools. So, these are like cultural, they're artistic, they're creative, they're
about developing a
rigorous.
sense of self, aren't they? I think back to the Black British episode and what you talked about, your mum coming to Britain with this strong sense of Nigerian identity and strong roots. You kind of need that to buffer yourself against the violence of a system that basically is racist towards you a lot of the time. And maybe the supplementary schools were really bolstering people's sense of self in the face of a difficult, hostile environment.
Absolutely. I imagine that was one of the safest, most joyous places for kids. Maybe tough as well, because some of those teachers, I can tell you from experience, some of those teachers did not business. You better sit down and do your maths. If not, I'm literally going to go to your house, knock on the door and tell your mum. So you knew you had to behave in those schools. There's no playing. Some of those teachers were strict and we needed it. But alongside that, the African community also had their own form of supplementary education. Ours was maybe a bit more informal, and sometimes it was often rooted in religion and in our faith, church. So, for example, Sunday school, where you'd go to learn about your faith, but indirectly you'd also learn about your culture because of the songs that you sung and the stories that were told and so on and so forth. But then we also had like an informal way of bolstering our children's education. So it might be that uncle who's a mathematician, and then he might do one little maths class in the lead up to GCSE or lead up to SATs or whatever it was, and would educate the kids or educate a particular kid. If you had like an auntie who was like studying I don't know, medicine or something, she might do some of the science lessons. If you had someone who really was good at English, they would do some of the reading and the writing and stuff. And my godchildren till today, even as we speak, they are getting that informal supplementary education, but via Zoom with a lady in Nigeria.
Wow.
Because it's cheaper.
Wow.
So she gets on Zoom with them and she supplements the education they're getting in the education system. And I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's maths and science, if I'm not mistaken.
Right.
And so they're getting that additional education at home.
That's amazing.
And a lot of that comes from a sort of inherent distrust of the British education system.
Yeah, and the ability to teach our children and not make us behaviour management problems because our cultures are different a lot of the time.
But even more than that, it's also the fact that in Africa, if you get to the end of, let's say, year 7, and you don't pass the exam at the end of year 7, you do not go to year 8. You stay in year 7 until you pass.
Yes.
Which means you can be 16 in year 7. Right? You don't pass. So it's very robust. When you get through the grades, you get through the grades because you've actually learned the thing.
Apparently, by
Whereas
assessment.
here in the UK, if you get to the end of year 7 and you still can't read or write or whatever it is you're supposed to attain at the end of year 7, you're still going to year 8. And then year 9 and year 10. So it is feasible that you could leave school at the end of year 11, which is sort of around 16 years old, and not be able to properly read and write or do maths or whatever it is that you need to do at that age.
Yeah, and that must do a number on your self-esteem because all through that progression, you'll be realising something's going wrong and I'm being, in a sense, neglected.
Yes.
No one cares enough to step in and address that issue. And you're falling probably further and further behind your kids, which I'm sure would create terrible, like you would probably act out.
Well,
honestly.
then, and that's what happens. Some kids then act out, they disrupt the lessons, they cause all sorts of confusion. Now, it's not to say that schools here don't do their best to provide provision. You have teaching assistants, you have people who come in to take kids out to give them extra support and stuff like that. But regardless, if you get to the end of year 7 and you haven't hit the targets, you're still going to year 8.
Yeah. Wow.
And so there's a distrust in that. It's like, I don't trust that what you're doing with my kids is enough because I know that you're still just going to push them through.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get that auntie, I'm going to get that uncle, and they're going to give them the maths. Also, I don't trust that if my kid is ridiculously intelligent, that you're not going to keep them doing the same stuff at year 7 when they should be doing GCSE.
Yeah, that you're going to spot their talent.
Exactly.
And, you know,
and I do know there is gifted and talented, and I have seen that as well in primary schools. You know, there's those kids who are just really intelligent and they get pulled out to do like higher stuff, but you're still not going to make that 10-year-old do GCSE maths.
No.
Whereas African parents, like if my kid can do GCSE maths at age 10, I want them to go and do GCSE
African
maths.
parents, they will have a 3-year-old doing a PhD if they think it's possible.
Listen.
You know, you see those stories, they always come with like a meme of black excellence. And then this child's finished their PhD. I think I saw one like just
and they're
last
in
week, and they're like 17. They might as well be in nappies. It's true. It's true.
So I find it interesting that both cultures have found ways to supplement the education system. And I think it's important.
Yeah.
There is formal education, statutory education, and there's informal. And the informal is just as important, in my opinion, as the formal.
Yeah, exactly. And to go back to what you were saying about, you know, Liya-Marie's comment, our ancestors and previous generations have always known this. And maybe there is something helpful about having a realistic view of what the education system is actually going to do versus what we hope it should do to meet the needs of all its citizens.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I mentioned this in a previous episode, and let me know if I have, but sometimes I feel like as generations become more embedded in society, I'm talking about Africans and Caribbeans now, I think sometimes we get lulled into a false sense of security that because we're not fighting the battles that our parents and our grandparents fought, that things are actually okay. And maybe if we just ask a few things or complain a little bit, that maybe things will be okay. And it's like, no, those battles are still there. They're just slightly different and maybe not as overt. But I'm telling you now, I don't care if you are second generation Black, third generation Black, you must supplement your kids' education because they're not getting it in the schools. I don't care how much agitation you do, you have to supplement.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I think some of it is also that for a generation that's only been raised here, you've normalized that thing. It's all you've ever known. Some of their parents came, it's like me coming from Botswana to an education system here. You've seen something different as a comparison and a benchmark. So while you may intellectually know your parents fought for this, this, and this, you still haven't seen the alternative.
That's true.
So it's actually quite hard to agitate for that, because the only thing you know to agitate for is the agitation itself. Does that make sense? And I think you did raise this point. You raised this point in the community voice notes episode when we were talking about sickle cell and what happens. You know, we can get comfortable, or really, I think you're kind of almost saying normalized that it's okay that this thing has happened and our lives are settled, so why should we push for more change?
But also, kids aren't being sent to schools for the educationally subnormal.
They're being sent to pupil referral units instead.
That's what I'm trying to say. That's what I'm saying. But there, it was like so bait. It was like so obvious. It was like subnormal. It's in the title. How are you going to call my kid subnormal? What are you trying to do? Whereas now they're being sent, like you say, to a pupil referral unit. That doesn't sound as bad, but for me, it's a very similar thing.
Precisely. And it's why we have so many great education scholars from Black communities in the UK currently who talk about the education to prison pipeline for young boys. Because it looks like formal education, you get excluded. Now it's called a pupil referral unit, but it's really the same pathway as the previous generation faced when they were made educationally subnormal. And then if you get excluded from a pupil referral unit, which, by the way, I also taught in them and ran education programs in them, usually the next path is youth offending institutions.
Exactly.
And you can be inside, you can be on a sentence in the community or inside the institution. The trajectory just gets worse and worse, honestly.
It does. And we have to take that seriously. We have to take it deadly seriously. Education is very, very important. I had the honour and privilege to attend a Caribbean-founded supplementary school in Leeds. Absolutely. It was at a place called Tech North. And it was at the top of a place in Leeds that's famous for its Caribbean community and the birthplace of Carnival.
Which is
Leeds.
Sorry,
Chapeltown.
And I was going to say which place.
Look at me. Look at me.
I know it's Leeds, but which part? Like, not everybody knows about Chapeltown.
No, they don't, but they need to know about Chapeltown.
Exactly.
But yeah, so it was in Chapeltown, but it was at the top of Chapeltown, so kind of borders like Chapeltown and Chapel Allerton. I got to attend that. I don't know how I got to. It's so strange because, as I've spoken about in other episodes, my mum and my religion were very restrictive. So you couldn't go out, play out, or go anywhere that wasn't like church or school or like evangelizing.
That's why I was surprised. I was like,
surprised.
Oh, whoa.
Trust me, even me, I was like, oh my God, you're letting me go. I was like, yes. I think it may have had something to do with keyboard skills. I think maybe the place where you learnt keyboard was in the same place as Tech North. But for whatever reason, I was...
And keyboard for the church, presumably.
For the church, of course. I mean, come on, what else would it be? It's not going to be for all of these rock and roll.
Secular music was out from what I heard.
Cannot do rock and roll and R&B. No. So it was definitely for the church. Amen, amen. Blessings and glory. But somehow I found my way to Tech North and I loved it because it was my first time having my eyes open to just like Black empowerment, you know?
Yeah.
It was like they were telling me things about Black history and like, you know, we were once kings and, you know, I don't know, like the African-American politics.
I know the version of,
do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was like really Black empowerment and we are not dumb, we are powerful.
We were the ones that invented the abacus.
Yes,
and we did this and we had the biggest institution of learning before in the Benin, what is it, like the Benin Empire and stuff like that.
The libraries of Mali and
stuff
things like that.
Yeah.
Obviously it wasn't all in that one session, but certainly it had that flavour to it. And I'd never had an education like that because up until that point I had the church and then I had the statutory education in my school.
Yeah.
And I loved it. The storytelling was just incredible and the teachers were Black.
Yeah.
And they weren't just Black, they were like Black wearing cultural clothes, you know, their interpretation of various African attire. And the class was full of Black kids.
Wow.
Because remember, this is Leeds,
a white
right?
working class.
I think I was the only Black person, maybe one other Black person in my class. No, two other Black people. There was Natasha and Gavin. So there was 3 of us in our form room class. But most of my other classes in terms of subjects was mostly white.
Right.
I was often the only black person. Then suddenly I walk into a class and it's just all black kids and a black teacher talking about black stuff.
And that must have been so different from your London experience that you've described, where it was predominantly black students, right?
Exactly.
So you must have felt that gap when you moved here until the supplementary school.
It was very disheartening.
Really?
Yeah, very disheartening.
But the thing is, you would have absorbed by osmosis so much about your culture just by being surrounded by black kids in London that you would just lose.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah, because they're coming from similar homes. A lot of them are Nigerian or other African countries or Caribbean. The things that we're referencing are very similar in terms of food and accent and the way our mums. There's a recognition, a familiarity that was immediately lost when I moved to Leeds. In that supplementary education school in Tech North, it wasn't just the black empowerment things I've described. It was also computing.
Wow.
Maths, reading, writing, literature. Literacy skills, science. They were teaching all of that, but through a black lens with black teachers.
Wow.
So you're seeing adults who look like you, who are deeply intelligent, deeply articulate, deeply eloquent, focused.
And came with their PhDs and everything else probably as well.
Yes.
It's so fascinating hearing about your experiences, because I first ever found out about supplementary schools in, I would say 2012, when I started studying in the evening for my master's at a place called Birkbeck, which is known for evening studies and was originally set up for working class people to be able to study after work. And it has these quite radical roots if you look back at its history. And I had never, obviously I didn't get educated in London or anywhere near it, and I grew up on the continent for the first part. I had never heard of these supplementary schools, and I just remember thinking how amazing they sounded. And it got me on this massive quest where I ended up writing an essay at the time for one of my modules comparing the black supplementary school movement in the UK with Steve Biko's Black Consciousness movement in South Africa, which of course was there to resist the white apartheid state and had been deployed, as you described with the African communities here, through the church.
Right.
That was the quickest and easiest way to mobilize communities.
Yeah.
And I remember, again, I was in a white institution and I wrote that essay and I got a distinction for it. But the comment I received back was that my writing of this essay, which compared these two supplementary educations and talked about the racism of the UK education system, was, quote, too polemical. Meaning it sounds too much like a rant. And I just remember thinking, it's so interesting how a white lecturer would read that. And now, today, I have a language for that and what was going on and how that even that assessment was being read. But yeah, it seems to me the parallels and this need constantly for our communities to bolster ourselves against white institutions is always there. And you could see that in the mark I received. Well, not the mark, but at least the commentary I received. How are you going to give it a distinction? And also say, this is almost too much of a rant. It's not quite rigorous enough.
Yeah, because it will be to someone like that.
Yeah.
Because they don't have any need for it.
Precisely.
We do.
And it's, as you said, goes back to the purpose of education. It's disruptive of the status quo. Oh, we wanted to educate you, but not quite to this degree where you're challenging us.
Precisely.
On what we provide.
And therein lies the answer to why things are the way they are.
Yeah.
You know?
Fascinating. So I can hear the impact of Tech North, but what about your actual formal education, particularly in Leeds when you got here? Did you address race or racism or black communities at all?
Yes, I did. And there's a story that immediately comes to mind. And it was with my history teacher. So in the British education system, you get, at least back then, you get to year 8.
Which should be what age for people who aren't here? So
that's about 12, 13.
Is that the first year of high school?
No.
Second.
Year 7 is the first year of high school. So I think it's year 8 or is it year 9? I might be mixing these things up. One of those years you get to, and then you have to make choices on the subjects you're going to do for GCSE. So in the arts, you have a choice between like art, music, drama.
Yes.
And in the humanities, you had a choice between geography and history. I loved history.
Yeah.
I adored it. I loved the stories. I loved learning about people and how they lived. I just loved it. And so I wanted to pick history. But I had a little bit of a problem in that what I'd been taught up until that point in history didn't feel complete to me. So I wanted to make sure that what was going to happen if I picked it was going to be a bit more well-rounded, a bit more robust, and have a bit of rigor. And a lot of flow.
I love it.
See what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did. I don't know if I would count on my history teacher in high school to provide it, but okay, carry on.
Well, there you go. So up until that point, I'd heard about the transatlantic slave trade. You had this awful picture that was always used in those sorts of lessons, where it's the boat from a bird's eye view, the inside of a ship from a bird's eye view, with all of the enslaved Africans basically just sandwiched together like sardines, right? And it was harrowing, but important to know. And I was glad that it was taught. I wanted to know, is it going to go further than this? Because remember, I've gone to Tech North.
Yeah.
And I've understood that there's more to our story.
Yeah.
And also as someone who's African, that there's another history that I'm also aware of in terms of where I'm descended from and its link to Britain.
Yeah.
So I was trying to work out, you know, will that be included? So I approached my teacher, I'm not even going to say his name. And I said, you know, I mean, I was a teenager and I was a teenager from London. So maybe it came out in a way that them lot don't like it.
I'd be shocked. No, but anyway, you approached your teacher, as you should have, by the way.
And I said, I really want to pick history because I really enjoy it. Although I do feel like there's more to Black history than the transatlantic slave trade. Are you going to talk more about that? Are you going to talk about this? And I kind of laid out a few things.
That's good. That sounds like a very reasonable question.
Very reasonable. My guy hit the roof.
Really?
He went ape.
What? How? Why?
He was like, don't you tell me what I should and shouldn't teach. I know my subject. If you don't want to pick this subject, then don't pick it. And we just had this standoff in the hall. I can see the hallway where we stood, the fluorescent light, the narrow hallway, the glass pane door that divided his room from the hallway of humanities from the rest of the hall, and us standing out there just at loggerheads together. And then I just said to him in true Southeast London way, I said, well, I'm not going to pick your bloody subject then, I'm picking geography. And then pushed the glass pane door and stormed off.
That's a very high stakes interaction, especially, you know, you're a teenager, you're a kid.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, I was about 13.
Yeah, and learning how to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And which is an amazing thing that we should be teaching all students,
Yeah.
right? Do you remember how you felt in the moment? Because it was a strong response.
I didn't expect that response, so it took me by surprise. I remember being shocked and then really angry.
Yeah.
Because remember, I'm being told, Black power, Black people are strong, you know, fight for your rights. This
Advocate
is the stuff
for yourself.
Yeah, this is what I'm reading. I'm reading about the Black Panthers and Malcolm X and Huey P. Newton and, you know, Thomas Sankara. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm reading about all these people. And then here stands this guy, this white man, trying to tell me some other shit. And I'm like, well, then I'm not picking it. So I didn't pick history. I picked geography, and that was that.
That is actually sad.
And so I missed out on doing a GCSE in something that I actually love.
Loved.
Like, I look at my career now and it's basically a history career. I'm always in the archives. The stories I tell are stories from the past, and bringing them back and unearthing new angles on a story, new people, you know.
Wax print, small acts. I see it in
Hidden histories.
You know, Underground Railroad.
Underground Railroad. You know, this is all I do.
Yeah.
I love history.
Yeah.
And I got, and that chance got sort of taken away from me in that moment. Or maybe I took it away from myself.
No, you didn't.
So.
You absolutely didn't. If you are a child, you know, I think about how you talk about being a teacher and the impressionable young minds you have in front of you and how much care it takes to respond to and meet and attune to those people. Anger is not a caring, appropriate, or logical response. It's extremely
Not to a child.
defensive.
Yeah.
And at the core of that defensiveness has to be whiteness. How dare you, black child, have the audacity to question me? I mean, aren't we supposed to, going back to critical thinking, be in education systems to learn to ask critical questions?
Yep.
Is that not supposed to be
Exactly.
the point?
Yeah.
And now here's another example of you, young minds, being met with anger.
Yep.
And just as I was in my master's, met with you're too polemical.
Yep.
It's shut
Stay
this
in
down.
your lane.
Stay in your lane.
That's
firmly.
what it was, you know. And it would have taken him like 2 minutes to just get the thing that he was going to teach over the next few years and say, this is what we're going to cover. And then I could have had a quick peek and decided it's not going to cover the things I want. So actually, I'm just going to move on and pick geography. Or actually, I'll give it a go anyway. Who knows? I can always supplement it with my books and stuff.
I think what's interesting is that you've already said it's not going to cover.
Yeah.
Because the chances are, if he did cover it, he would have just sat down and showed you. So his anger reveals that it wasn't there. It was an absence. And you named a silence in the curriculum.
Right.
You named, this is not here.
Yeah.
And it made him feel inadequate.
Yeah.
And rather than own his inadequacy and think, well, do I need to change, or do I have the right to change this thing, and can I explain it to that child? He met you with anger.
Yes.
So you, at some deep level, you already know it wasn't there.
Exactly. That's interesting. That's interesting. And it wasn't the last time that I experienced that. I experienced it again in music. And then fast forward, here I am doing music, you know? It's
we survive and persist in spite of the madness we experience in education systems.
Exactly.
Really, I don't know how we do it, but we keep doing it.
We keep going like our ancestors before us.
Yeah.
You know?
In absence of the supportive response you deserved as a child, were there other places beyond Tech North that you sought to get that education?
Definitely. I mean, I've spoken about this before, but the Voice newspaper, that was my lifeline.
Yeah.
I got my local newsagent to order that newspaper every week. Because remember, it's a London newspaper. So they having to order it. I don't know where they ordered it from, but all I knew is that paper landed every week. And I took my little bit of money from my paper round and I prioritized buying that newspaper, and I would read it from cover to cover.
Yeah.
And in that newspaper, it kept me updated on everything. The politics, the social commentary, what was happening in the black community, mostly in London, with the odd bits from like Birmingham or Manchester and Leeds. It taught me about the black people in politics.
Oh, yeah.
Diane Abbott was often a feature in that newspaper. It kept me informed about people's opinions and things. So there were lots of articles and columns by black thinkers and scholars and philosophers and activists. It was just a lifeline for me. Do you know what I mean?
So in effect, you were learning history. I don't know how much history was in the magazine.
Lots.
But okay, that's what I was going to, like, you would have got the thing that, you know, your history teacher never gave you, even by knowing who these thinkers were and what their legacies were.
Exactly.
You know, because the 70s is before you
Way
were born.
before. Yeah.
And I was born.
But
Meaning,
they
there's
were
history.
in there like writing, there'd be activists writing about that history.
Right.
There'd be social commentary. So there'd be like history, but also current affairs, but through a black lens.
Right.
If anything was going on in the wider society, I'd get the black perspective on that. How does this change in law affect us as a black community, for example?
Yeah.
So it was really, really important to me. And I am very grateful for The Voice being in existence and my young self for, you know, having the wherewithal to put
use
aside
your paper round money, probably.
Because listen, that paper round money was for like sweets and like, you know, my day-to-day supplies. So I prioritized the newspaper.
That's actually impressive, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I was obsessed with learning. I loved learning and knowing.
After all of that utter chaos and let's say violence against all of who you are and what you wanted to study, you somehow still decided to become a teacher. Tell me more about that decision and why. What went through your mind?
There is no noble reason.
Really?
I really wish I could say, yes, I wanted to step into education and change the lives of future black children. There was no noble reason.
Really?
Shall I give you the real reason?
Of course. I want to know the real reason.
Oh, God, this is, well, forgive me if for those out there. But I really just wanted to get back to London. So I had just finished my studies at Leeds College of Music and Leeds Met, as it was called then. And I knew that the things I wanted to do in the entertainment industry, I wouldn't be able to do in Leeds for a whole bunch of reasons. And maybe that's a whole debate I need to have some other time. And I knew I needed to move back to London. Obviously, London's a lot more expensive than Leeds.
Sure is.
So I was like, how can I move back to London in the easiest possible way? At the time, the government were doing a scheme for shortage subjects in teaching. And they were actively recruiting teachers to fill that shortage in those subjects.
Right.
And so they were giving like lots of
incentives
for you to do that. Music was one of those shortage subjects, along with, I think it was maths, physics, and a couple of other subjects. So I was like, brilliant, great. So I applied, got my place, and then moved to London to study at the University of Greenwich to become a teacher of music.
So this would have been a PGCE?
Yeah, it was a PGCE, secondary music education.
Okay.
And it was a 1-year course. And on the course, you have like placements and stuff like that. And once I got onto the course and actually got onto the placement part, that's where you actually go out into actual schools and start teaching. That's when I realized I love teaching. I just loved it. I just loved seeing kids come in without really any knowledge of your subject. And then by the end of 6 weeks, they can play a particular thing, or they can write lyrics, or they can make a beat, or you know what I mean? It's like, I loved seeing my subject come to life in new ways in the minds and the hearts of these young people. And in a way, it makes sense because I look at my family and we're basically a family of teachers and educators.
Yeah, you come from a lineage of teachers. Of course, like I never had a chance to meet your dad who passed, but that's one of the first things. Teacher,
He was a
academic.
lecturer.
You have your uncles.
He's a professor.
Yeah.
My other uncle's a professor.
Wasn't your grandfather a...
My grandfather was a high school principal. My grandma educated thousands of seamstresses and chefs and cooks. My mum, in a way, was a teacher, but of women.
Church.
She was a leader of women. My stepdad is a PhD holder and a teacher. He was head of maths at a school in London. My auntie is a high school principal in America.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
know that.
On my mum's side. So that like we are a family of educators.
Yeah, yeah. And which is something we have in common. Like,
exactly.
I come from a family of educators too. And I obviously have seen from early on that you are a brilliant teacher, because even when I heard you with team members at II on calls early in our relationship when we were working from home in the same space or whatever, I think teaching is in your blood. And I could really, really, really see that. So teaching found you, even if you didn't want it to find you.
It dragged me kicking and screaming into the classrooms of the UK.
Okay, so you didn't go with noble intentions, but there you were, and you suddenly loved it. How would you say your early experiences in formal education shaped how you approached teaching now that you were a teacher?
Having that experience with my history teacher and then my music teacher after that, I realised that gave me a model of a kind of teacher that I never want to be. Do you know what I mean? I never want to shut a child down.
Yep.
I never want to pretend I know everything. I never want to make my subject opaque, if that makes sense.
Yeah, inaccessible.
Inaccessible.
Yeah.
Right? So for me, when I went into teaching, I would always be honest. If I didn't know something, I'd just be like, let's find out together and let's just get it up on the smart board. So we had these smart boards that are connected to the computer, and I'll just type it in, just search on Google and see what it says. And sometimes it will bring something back. Oh yeah, actually I do know that. And actually the extension of that is this. Or sometimes be like, wow, well, that's new information.
Okay.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
And we sort of learn together, right? Sometimes I think that word teacher, it sometimes has this connotation of top down. I'm above with all the knowledge, you're below and you don't have any knowledge, and I'm going to give you the knowledge and that's it. As opposed to maybe facilitation, which is like, I do have some knowledge, I do have a lot of knowledge, but there might be things that I don't know. So let's explore together.
Yeah, and
you don't lose
here's
power.
how you find out.
Yeah.
That's what, we talked about this a little bit in a previous episode on sickle cell. Like researchers aren't supposed to know anything, just like teachers.
Yes.
What you have is a set of skills to find out knowledge, to share it. And in you searching in front of your students, they'd be picking up, if I don't know something, this is what I can do, which is the actually transferable principle that you want them to come away with.
Yeah, and one of my favorite things is when a kid would go away from a lesson that we'd had and they'd go away and do their own research and they'd come back and be like, look what I found.
Miss.
Be like, look, and then they'd be sharing what they found. I'd be like, oh yeah, that is actually really interesting. Actually, that leads to this other thing. Yeah. And it's like, there's like a back and forth, you know?
Can you remember any examples of kids coming in or what kind of things they would have done that with?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah.
You teach so many children.
Yeah.
I've taught thousands of children over the years. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? That I really get that. Yeah.
My father was a teacher for his entire career, and I saw every year group getting marked. And you ask him now, he's like, people tell me when they meet me, oh, your father's Mr. Walker, he did this, and I'll go back to my dad and be like, this person said this to you, like, apart from the first year group and maybe a few odd people, I can't remember. There were so many, but teachers have such a profound effect on those kids. And that's what someone like your history teacher wouldn't appreciate.
Exactly. Coming back to that experience of my journey through becoming a teacher and then actually teaching, part of that process of learning to be a teacher is you actually study something they call pedagogy, which is like...
how to teach?
Yeah.
How to the teach. History of the education system.
Exactly.
What its importance.
Exactly. And me being me, there were the official textbooks that you're supposed to read, and I had those and I read those. And then I did my own informal, because remember, I've now been equipped with the skills and the tools to do my own thinking about things and not to just accept what these guys in the lecture theatres are telling me, right? So I'm now going away to do additional readings and stuff.
You're supplementing your own teacher training.
Listen, because the thing people need to realize, it doesn't stop just supplementing when you're a teenager. Yeah. It should go through your entire life.
Yeah. I mean, again, back to distrust, we learn.
Yeah.
We don't trust that we're going to get the full picture. Therefore, I have to work and do all this extra to really understand what I think of this thing.
Exactly. And so in that searching, I discovered the works of a powerful man, I was so sad when he passed, called John Taylor Gatto. And he was an American educator in the American statutory system as well. So he taught high school. And he wrote a few books. There was Weapons of Mass Instruction. Ooh. There was
That's a powerful title.
Well, wait till you hear the next one, because there was Dumbing Us Down.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And he was doing this.
Gatto.
Listen. And he was doing the same thing when he became a teacher as I was, which is I'm seeing these kids come through the door and I'm teaching them, but I'm seeing like certain things are just going wrong. Why are they going wrong at certain stages of their education? And why is it that a kid can go through this education system and still not have critical thinking facilities and so on and so forth? So he started to do his own digging and he put a lot of that research into his book. And one of the things I learned through my research and his books, is that the roots of the British education system is military. And then in terms of that formal education system more broadly, the roots of it goes back to a place called Prussia, which is now Germany. They developed this state-organized education system that was designed to create citizens who were capable of defending the nation and also being patriotic.
Yeah.
And those are the roots of it. And that carries on into the UK, which has a similar foundation, right? So if you think about how soldiers are trained, it's rote, it's... you do as you're told, you do your drills over and over again, you obey orders, and you have the exact bit of knowledge you need to do a specific task in a specific situation.
Set by people who hold more power than you
who hold more power.
In other words, not critical thinking.
Precisely. There's no critical thinking allowed. It's just do the thing, right? And so if you think about that as the underpinnings of our education system, it then makes sense as to why we don't have a lot of critical thinking in the education system. And I really struggled with that because as I started to teach in the system, I could see that play out in the curriculum. I could see it in the teachers who were teaching the children.
Yeah.
I could see it in the way children responded. Because, when a child comes in, a child isn't soldier-like. A child is free-spirited, full of energy. They want to move. They want to talk. They want to put their hand up. They want to
push boundaries. They want to understand what they can do. They want to play.
Yes.
They want to
all
move
of these
to their own natural rhythm.
Yeah. And you're saying, no.
Yeah.
The bell rings. So that even the bell rings. Everyone moves like rats through a corridor into the first lesson.
Yeah.
And that lesson might be maths.
Yeah.
Then the bell rings again. Suddenly you're in music. So you switch from left
Task
brain
switching.
to right brain for an hour. Then bam, you're into your mind is never settling. You don't have the time to fully explore something and stay in a particular space. And then of course, when you're in the classroom, sit still, face the front, cross your arms, fold your legs, don't ask questions, say it like this, don't say it like that. And it's all so robotic.
Yeah, and no wonder so many kids have meltdowns, which we then pathologize and diagnose. It's like, that is extremely overwhelming. Just listening to you, I'm like,
it's crazy.
I feel
assaulted.
Yeah. Honestly, I feel under assault listening to you describe that, actually.
And so, it's one thing to be a student in that, and it's another thing to now be a teacher enforcing that.
Yeah.
So now I'm the one standing at the front of the classroom saying, don't put your hand up. No, you can't go to the toilet. You need a pass to do this. And you've
probably got like 30 a class.
You've got 30 kids in a class.
Yeah. So what choice do you have as well?
This is it. So I'm really struggling with that aspect of it. I love the teaching. I love enlightening young minds. I love my subject.
Yeah.
But I don't love the system.
Yeah.
And so now I'm really struggling with this whole situation.
Yeah.
And things are starting to crumble before my eyes. With each passing academic year, I'm like, oh no.
I'm not sure this is going to work.
This is going to work.
Well, you did make it work at some level, maybe not to your satisfaction, but how many years were you a teacher for?
In statutory education, I went from 2009. So I qualified in 2009 and I was there. The last school I taught in was 2017, December 2017.
So that would be how many years in total?
8
years.
8 years?
Yeah.
About 8 years.
Yeah.
Not including my year of PGCE.
Yeah. And I know you've taught in other settings.
Yeah, I've
since,
taught at
you?
university. I've lectured there. I've done a lot of informal private education. So like people will hire me to do a workshop on sound design or filmmaking or music or whatever. Mm-hmm. I teach informally at my company. If people come through, I sometimes put on courses and stuff like that. So,
I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm quite curious about if you could explain the transition from teaching to what you do now, because I would have thought, having seen you teach and knowing you're a brilliant teacher, that they would have tried to hold on to you, especially knowing they're having struggles holding on to teachers. So how did you get to the entertainment part of it, and how did you not get sucked
you know
in?
what it is, right, with teaching, you got to be careful if you are someone who wants to do teaching on the side until you get to do the thing you actually want to do. You have to keep your core vision in the center of your mind. My core vision was, I want to work in the entertainment industry and this teaching thing is a stopgap. I watched many of my peers become teachers and stay teachers, and some of them are still teachers, but that was never their core goal. Their core goal was to be artists. I had to keep at the center that I wanted to move to London to focus on, at the time, my music career. And so I knew that I couldn't allow myself to get sucked in. So very often what I would do is I'd stay at a school for a little while, but I made sure to stay on a supply contract, even though I wasn't doing supply work.
Okay, and supply contract is what?
It's almost ad hoc. So it's like...
you're filling in gaps for teachers when they're off sick or something?
Yeah, technically that's what it is. But because of my specialist subject, particularly in primary school, they would just bring you in as the music teacher. So I was head of music at a few primary schools. So what would happen in some of the schools is that they would essentially have you on a temporary contract, but you'd just be doing...
the normal job,
essentially the normal job,
Okay.
you know what I mean? They would sort of bend the rules. Because I guess they liked having me there. I built a good rapport. I enjoyed my subject and, that probably came across. So I'd become quite embedded in the school. But I always knew I had to have that, because where a teacher gets paid constantly throughout the year, a salary, when it got to the summer holidays, I wouldn't.
Oh, yeah.
And I needed that discomfort.
Yes.
Because it meant that, oh, the summer holidays is coming. What are you doing? Oh, I need to be out gigging.
Right.
And if I'm out gigging, what do I need to be doing during the academic year? Writing, rehearsing, recording, putting stuff out.
Right.
Because the summer's coming.
Yeah.
And the holidays are coming, all the different holidays that are dotted throughout the year.
So you were part of the gig economy and gigging.
I really was. I really was in a lot of ways.
Portfolio career.
I really did. I really did.
Okay. And you just kept your eye on the prize.
I had
land
to.
at this place.
I had to. And then the first moment I could see where it's like, yes, I can get out of this and really focus on this, I took.
Okay.
And that's when I started working at the Young Vic.
I want to go back to what you were saying about the teacher training piece. Because... Okay, wait. We need to get into the reaction you're having to me even asking about teacher training, but because you are looking, I don't know if I've seen that look in you before. What is it?
That is a look of consternation.
Consternation. Big words.
Listen, you know Nigerians, I already told you, we have all sorts of archaic words, big words. We love it. We love a big word.
So what did you observe about the teacher training space and how Black history or Black students were talked about during your teacher training period?
Oh man, it was every time Black History Month came along, it was almost like you could just see the teachers, because it's majority white, the school staff, the teaching staff. In pretty much all the schools I've been at, even schools in inner city London where the population might be very diverse, the teaching staff are often predominantly white, which I guess makes sense because the country is predominantly white, but it has some ramifications. But when Black History Month would come along, you could almost just hear everyone just sort of internally groan a little. Like, shit, now I've got to put some Black stuff in here on top of my marking, on top of the performance management, on top of the fucking parents, on top of everything else.
Yeah.
So, and it would just be, it always felt a bit tokenistic.
Yeah.
And maybe slightly cringe in some ways sometimes.
Yeah, oh yeah. Especially if you've been to a supplementary school and seen the alternatives.
Yeah.
It's like, what is this? Okay, yeah, go on.
And obviously that was back then. I imagine it's probably improved. I would like to hope it's improved. In fact, for teachers that are out there now, I actually wonder, has it improved?
I interviewed a Black woman who did her PGCE in a similar environment in religious education she was doing.
Okay.
Amongst a classroom of only white peers, but the expectation was that they would be going into inner city and very diverse schools to teach. And the look of consternation you gave me, I mean, no joke, she cried in our interview and we had to stop the interview because her PGCE experience was so traumatic.
So was mine.
And so difficult.
Yeah.
And so just problematic.
It was god awful.
Yeah, I mean,
How long ago was that? When did she get her PGCE?
I can't remember that. I mean, this is a long time ago. This interview happened, but
it
I conducted the interview in 2018, and
okay.
she had been working in the organisation that I met her at maybe for a couple of years. So she probably would have done it a little bit before you, maybe actually, or around the same time, maybe.
Yeah, so I'm definitely curious to hear if things have changed for teachers that are teaching now. But yeah, it often felt very tokenistic. It was like, oh yeah, the curriculum now requires that we do this thing, so let me do the thing to the best of my ability. So then they'd pull out all the usual suspects, the ones that are palatable to the system. So it'd be Martin Luther King, but of course, only the bit where he's like walking hand in hand, of course, with white people and preaching love. Not the bit where he's starting to realize that it doesn't actually
work. I'm not sure all this peace and love kumbaya.
Yeah, I think I'm going to align myself a bit more with Malcolm X. We didn't do that bit.
No.
Just the kumbaya.
Happy people, clappy people.
With the speech.
I have a dream.
I have a dream that one day, Then, of course, they'd have Rosa Parks
of course.
On the bus. They would have, I'm trying to think, who else were some of the figureheads that they would put up? Oh, they'd have Mary Seacole, the nurse, the British nurse, who helped British soldiers in the Crimean War. So she was one of the British figureheads. Of course, there was no Malcolm X, no Black Panthers, no Huey P. Newton, no Thomas Sankara.
Nobody you
Steve
learned about
Biko.
in supplementary school.
Yeah. Oh, the other one they loved was Nelson Mandela.
Oh, Nelson is...
But only the bit, not the bit where he was, we'll do that again.
Nelson. I was obsessed with Nelson when I was younger. Met him.
Yeah, you did.
Story for another day.
Yeah. But of course, the bit where, it's peace and love, not the bit where he's labelled a terrorist for having the audacity to agitate for a South Africa that's not ruled by white people.
Like maybe his involvement in Mkhonto Sizwe, the armed wing, silent armed wing of the ANC at the time.
We didn't hear about that bit. No.
The only peace and love.
It was Nelson Mandela with grey
prison.
hair after 30 years in prison.
It's true.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It was like cherry picked.
Yeah, sure.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they became the figureheads, and of course their faces and their speeches or bits from their speeches would be on all the boards throughout the year. And then, depending on the school, they might have a bit of flavour in there with the black, red and green. No, the Pan-African colours, yellow, red and green.
Pan-African colours.
There will be some general Pan-Africans. There'll be some green, some red, some black, and some yellow.
Black. I feel like black is definitely in there.
Black's in there. Come on, Black History Month. Do you know what I mean? So they might throw in some flavour there. If the schools are particularly daring, they might invite in, someone from the community to cook a little bit of cultural food.
Jollof rice.
Everyone knows about jollof rice. Some jerk chicken.
Can I just say something that I find really interesting, going back to Liya-Marie's comment at the beginning, is we got American heroes and South African heroes, and she said we got no British icons.
No.
And then the one British icon they choose goes further back in history, and it's a nurse for doing a good, loving thing. It's almost as if there was no
for
British...
caring for white people,
Precisely.
Essentially. Yeah.
And it's almost as if there was no... You could go to school, I guess, and think there was no Black British civil rights movement or bus boycott or all of those things that happened here.
That part, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't hear about Darkest Howl in those the Mangrove 9.
No.
I didn't hear about that. I didn't hear about... Olive Morris.
Yes.
I didn't hear about Gertrude Paul.
Yes.
One of the UK's first black female head teachers. That might have been a good thing, seeing as we're in an education system.
And if you want to know about them, listen to Hidden Histories with Nova Reid, because we did a podcast on it.
We did, an Audible series that came out earlier this year. Yeah, there were so many, we didn't hear about... some who were particularly a bit more knowledgeable might talk about Equiano. He was a formerly enslaved person who was a writer and wrote a book about his experiences as an enslaved person. And so some teachers, particularly in the higher ends of the school, so we're talking at year 10 and 11, they may have talked about that maybe in English or something. Yeah. But it all did feel very tokenistic. And I think...
The best we got was Othello, who we were told was a Moor, which again, also like Equiano, we're now going many, many centuries back. It's almost as this history you get here is divorced from contemporary reality.
Yes.
There's no through line to make you realise the things that are happening today, by the way, they may connect back to some of these things.
That part. So, yeah, so interesting. And then, I think about the makeup of the school staff, right? I remember in inner city London, where I did a lot of my teaching, a lot of the teachers, particularly in the primary school that I taught at, were not from the local community. They were often white and middle class. Some of them didn't even come from the UK.
Yeah.
So some of them were white South African, white Australian, bussing into the community to teach these kids and then bussing out. And I'm like, for them, they have no connection to this history. It's just a thing that they have to do now in October. They don't really care about it in that way. They might find the stories interesting, but they can't expound on them. They can't do that thing, that through line, that, Equiano links to this links to this, which links to this, and then links to the Broadwater farm riots.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why we must continue to agitate. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. There's no through line.
There's none.
So and also you said the important thing once again, which is that presumably all of this stuff happening for them is 1 month, and they're breathing a sigh of relief at the end of October.
They
Black
can't.
History
It
Month.
gets to the end. It's like, thank fuck for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, done. I've learnt the little supplementary bits I need for this month, and on we go.
And on we go.
Yeah. So if those were your peers, what did you decide to do as a teacher about Black history?
I mean, I taught music. So I don't really know that I taught Black History Month specifically.
But music has this is another thing that happens in education systems.
Yeah.
That black teaching about Black kids or any diverse group has to happen in this one subject or this small few subjects. Whereas music is...
Yeah. It's so interesting because that word history in the title makes you think that it belongs in history. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But actually, hearing you say that, when I think about it, I did teach Black history, but it was just a part and parcel of everything that I did.
There we go.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. So what did that actually look like?
So, for example, there would be, if we had a unit of work, so, as a teacher, you have like units that take up like a term or half a term, and you would plan for that whole unit and it'd be on a particular theme, right? So as an example, there's a unit of work that was on protest music, right?
Okay.
And as a teacher, you can interpret that however you want, and you can pick protest music from wherever. Northern Ireland has protest songs.
Yeah.
Anywhere people are agitating for change, usually music goes hand in hand. When you go to a march, what's the first thing you hear?
Chants.
Yeah. You know what I mean, right? And artists often tend to be aligned with protest movements.
Yeah.
And then they will sing about it, write songs about it, right? So I would often bring in a lot of Black music into those discussions. So for example, I talk about how Brazilian music, so obviously in Brazil, there's a lot of enslaved people that were brought there by the Portuguese. They weren't allowed to
protest strongly.
Say again.
Protest strongly.
Yeah, we're allowed to protest strongly because it would have just been squashed with violence. So they found other ways to protest. So you couldn't protest in a very overt way. So very often with their music, the music sounds happy. Sounds really happy, really nice. It's where you get the salsa and the samba.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
You just swing your hips into change,
just swing your hips. But the lyrics,
really?
Oh my God, those lyrics are saying some dark things.
Really?
Yeah, like deep, dark things about what's going on. The inequalities, the violence, the destruction, the disconnection from home. And they're protesting against the powers that be through this really happy music. So you get to talk about things like contrast in music.
Sexy protest.
Well, yeah,
Sexy hip swinging protest.
Listen, so you get to talk about contrast, in music and how the music can be saying one thing and the lyrics can be saying something completely different. You talk about Bob Marley, stand up for your rights. Do you know what I mean? Get up, stand up. Do you know what I mean?
Don't give up the fight.
And then you'd go back to the transatlantic slave trade.
Yeah.
And then you've got songs that came out of that. The blues and how that's a form of protest music, And so you'd kind of talk about it, you're talking about Black history, but through music and globally.
Yeah.
And how the struggle is not just Black and British, it's actually a massive global protest against corrupt people in power who just want to extract and exploit and destroy. Yeah.
I love you explaining that through the lens of music as a teacher, because I do think this is one of the most common challenges and problems and maybe misconceptions about the teaching of Black history or the teaching of any other group that is excluded from education. Yeah, this idea that it sits in history. Like, let's talk about numbers and the abacus and maths.
Exactly.
They're all, you don't have to do a lot of it, but you can give a little bit of a history to that at the beginning of a class in 2 or 3 minutes, actually, that helps students understand that people made sense of these theories in different ways and in terms of numbers, and wrote numbers differently, etc. Simple. I know it might, I don't know if it's on the curriculum. I doubt it. It certainly wasn't when I was in school, but it's a really good example of this shouldn't be confined to 1 month.
No.
Diverse stories of how we got to any subject really need to be told all year round. How did the students respond to you teaching music in this very contextualized, rich and embedded way?
I think, kids love stories. All human beings love stories. It's one of the first things you get taught, right? So the moment you're opening with like a story, and then a story that also goes hand in hand with a song, because the other thing we love as human beings is melody, right? It's how we learn our first subjects, the alphabet. Do you know what I mean? So A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Do you know what I mean? We learn about the world.
Hey, can you put a beat to it? Can we just remake the A, B,
I'll
A,
get
B,
D
C,
to do
D,
that.
E, F, G. Okay.
But yeah, so the moment you've got song and story, I think people are generally engaged. So I would always try as much as possible to lead with song and story. And obviously my subject lends itself to that. Thank God.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one time, so I, at one point, was head of music at a school in London in Tower Hamlets called Stepney Green Maths and Computing College. I was head of music for a year there, covering for the former head of music. And the school is in an area that's predominantly Asian. And this school was predominantly Bangladeshi. So I remember there was this one group of year 8 boys. It was all Bangladeshi except for one white ginger boy.
Wow.
I'll never forget him because it was just...
I can't wait till we put this cut down out to the right wingers. I feel
that's why we've got to get him out. And I remember this lesson. So we were talking about the transatlantic slave trade or something like that, something to do with African-American history, essentially. And I decided to teach through a song by Nina Simone called For Women.
That's an iconic, legendary
Listen, that song is so powerful.
Yeah.
And I love the song and I love Nina Simone.
I was obsessed. Yeah. Biographies, everything.
Exactly. So in the song, she talks about 4 different women who are 4 different shades of melanin due to the transatlantic slave trade and just rape and abuse and so on and so forth. So I press play on the song, and the first woman that Nina Simone talks about is, my skin is black. The boys understood that. We all know about black people. That's the language that we get. And they're like, yep. And I've got the lyrics on the smartboard. That happens. The boys are okay with that. And they're really paying attention because it's music and lyrics and stuff like that. The next woman comes along. My skin is yellow. And the boys died laughing. They were on the floor laughing. And I was like, inside, I was like crying. I was like, not my Nina. Why are they laughing at my Nina? You know, when you're crying inside as a teacher, but you can't show it because this is boys as well. You know what I mean? If you show any little weakness, then it's over for you. So I'm like, I put my strong face on and I'm like, what's the reason? Why did you find that particular lyric funny? What it is. And one of the braver boys puts his hand up and he's like, Miss, why is her skin yellow? Is she a Simpson?
Oh, no. Wow. Of course.
And then, of course, they all die laughing at that point as well.
Yeah.
So it took me a whole long time to get them back and then to explain what was going on.
Right.
Because the yellow-skinned woman, we talked about this in the mixed race episode, because as Nigerians, we would refer sometimes to mixed race people as yellow, that yellow girl, that yellow boy, or whatever. It's a common language for us and maybe for my generation.
Right.
But in this generation, that term yellow is no longer a thing.
Yeah.
They don't understand mixed race people as yellow.
Yeah.
And it actually talks about in the song, she's yellow because her white father, raped her black mother late one night. That's why she's yellow. And as a result, this is her situation and her temperament, right?
Okay.
So we're talking about the impact of race and the birth of race. And there's so many things that you can tackle in that one song, right?
Yeah.
But language did not
translates for those kids.
Because it's changed.
Yes.
Yellow, it's a Simpson. Because, of course, for them, it is the Simpsons.
Or the only time they've seen yellow skin in anywhere represented with that word attached.
Oh, my God, that was hilarious. We ended up having a big discussion because, obviously, the next woman is, my skin is tan, I think. And then...
I thought yellow came later. No. It was the second one,
No,
really?
it's the second one, yes.
That's so interesting.
So...
I thought it was the fourth in my head for some reason.
No, so the first woman is black. Then the second woman is yellow. The third woman is tan. And then the fourth woman is brown.
I always thought it went black, brown, tan, yellow, but I must have just made that up in my head.
Yeah, because you're going from dark-skinned black woman to mixed race woman as a direct result of the rape of the dark-skinned woman.
Yeah.
Then you've got her having a kid probably with a white person to produce someone who's passing, who's tan. Okay. So she can pass.
Yeah.
And I think the lyric in that one
mixed
is...
person.
Yeah, my skin is tan. She's... Whose little girl am I? Anyone who has money to buy. So I think we're talking there about prostitution. My name is Sweet Thing. And then by brown, she's almost like... not as black as her foremothers, but she's still experiencing the violence of being a black woman. So her manner is tough. I'll kill the first mother I see. My life has been rough. I'm awfully bitter these days because my parents were slaves. Yeah. What do they call me? My name is Peaches. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's sort of going through all of these things. But it was so interesting how language just didn't translate.
Yeah.
But it's a really powerful song. And they did appreciate the song. They weren't silly about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
they really did appreciate it.
After you get the language, you've had a history lesson, but through melody, as you say, through music, through the lens of a woman they probably would never have encountered. And I imagine there were also some cultural barriers and religious barriers for some of those kids with music specifically.
Listen, because most of those boys, pretty much all of the Bangladeshi boys were Muslim.
Yeah.
And so for them, having to come to my lesson, music, they were like, I'm not coming to your lesson because music is haram.
So a lot of them had that kind of
they
outlook.
did not want to come. And I had to adjust what I was teaching and how I taught it in order to cater to the boys who were just like, I'm not doing this and I don't have to do this and I can bring my whole community and they will go with me to agree that I don't have to do this subject. It was a struggle.
Yeah, that is so, like, how would your middle class white peers who you were in training have dealt with that scenario? And what was your instruction like there to prepare them for that, or prepare all of you for that?
Prepare all of who?
Prepare all of you who were in teacher training.
Oh,
for that. Like,
the teacher training, it doesn't prepare you for things like that.
Okay.
It really does. No, there is nothing in my teacher training that prepared me to go into a school that's predominantly Bangladeshi and Muslim for the resistance towards the subject of music. Nothing in my teaching prepared me for that.
And then also for the way you taught itself, because the reason I'm asking is my memories of the music curriculum was we got taught Beethoven and notes like on a stave and stuff like that. So was your training still like that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I was so odd in my teacher training. I felt like I was an alien from another planet dropped into that class. I hated that course. It traumatized me to the core of my being.
Okay.
I was so out of place. I was so underclassed, for want of a better term, because the majority of people in that class, you're dealing with music, right? Mm. So the majority of people in that class were classically trained,
right,
and middle class.
Yeah.
These are people who I play the first violin in the orchestra. I didn't even know there was a first violin. I just thought there's a bunch of violins. Yeah. I don't know there's first or second. Do you know what I mean? I was like,
what does it mean to be first?
Is
that you like the extra good one?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Do you walk in first? Is that what are we dealing with here?
No, I'm genuinely asking you. Do you know what it means?
The first violin is the premium, the principal violin.
They play the top line or something.
I don't know they play. They play. If there's a solo, for example,
right.
They're playing that solo.
Okay.
I think they walk in first. There's some hierarchy and class and stuff like that.
Okay.
Listen, these are people who play like instruments like oboe, which I'd never even seen at that point or even heard. And they read theory that, their music theory is on point. They're grade 8 and higher in music theory. But they're also the people who can't play without the dots. I'm coming from a background where we play by ear and by spirit.
Exactly.
If the spirit moves the passer to change, you also change. and you figure it out. Do you know what I mean? We learn by ear.
If he speeds up and the drummer starts,
you speed
just
up.
move. Yeah,
End of.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You're led by the spirit.
Yeah.
The spirit leads you as you're playing.
Yeah.
Is what it is.
Yeah.
And you learn by ear. So I was really self-taught by that point. I'd learned some theory at music college, but only to grade 3.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with people who are just very upper class or middle class or more. And here I come, some black working class person who doesn't play an instrument to the level that they do, doesn't read theory the way they read theory or even understand a lot of the theory, and whose main instrument, if we're being very, very honest, is the computer. Because I knew how to produce.
You did music tech.
I did music tech and production.
Right.
So you put me in front of a computer, I can make you a beat, I can make you anything.
Which I bet the kids absolutely loved.
Well, this is the thing. So when I came in, it was around to 2008. We're coming into like home studios, Fruity Loops beats.
Was big.
People are making stuff, putting their stuff out. It's a very innovative, exciting era of
especially
music.
for kids in London.
Listen,
like grime,
listen,
all of that stuff.
Listen.
Yeah.
So I'm coming in as a person who has mastery of that, right? And then I'm in this classroom of people who have mastery of the traditional, right? And I've got a teacher who's also a master of the traditional and loves that. So he adored his students who could play the oboe and the violin and the viola. And then there's just me who's like, can I get on the computer to show you what I mean by what I want to teach the kids?
Yeah,
I mean?
You don't have the language. It was exactly the same for me going to my music course.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know the theory. I don't know how to explain it. I can just play it for you or sing it for you. And then can you copy it?
Exactly. That was it.
Yeah.
So then I'm in this environment that really felt quite hostile and alienating because people would make it clear when you didn't understand something that they understood it better than you, and there was almost like a sort of looking down upon is how I felt. Some of it could also just be my own internal feelings of feeling less than as well. But the reason why they accept me on the course is because the guy who accepted me said, what you do with the computer and beats and production is the future. And while you don't have all of this other stuff, the classical, traditional stuff, you will fit right in because that's the way things are going. It's the people who understand the tech and can do that with the kids that are going to shine. Yeah. So we're going to accept you on the course, but we're going to put you through a summer school to bring your knowledge up in terms of theory and certain playing skills that you might need in the classroom. I was like, great, I just want to get out of Leeds. So put me on whatever summer school you got to put me on.
And you love learning as well.
Exactly. So I was grateful for the extra tuition. Anyway, we're all in the class before the first placement, and there's all this, first violin and first viola and darling, all of that sort of stuff. Yes, and I was talking with the chair of the thing, and the conductor. Did you know the conductor John so-and-so from the London Philharmonic, darling? They were all doing all of that stuff, and I couldn't get to grips with it.
The filler what?
Filler who?
Chicken filler.
Literally. But then we go to our first placement. We're in inner city London. Remember, Greenwich.
Yeah, this is where you grew up. Yeah.
I know these ends.
Yeah.
So we go into the first placement. My first school was Eltham Green. One of the roughest schools.
I used to look after kids who'd been kicked into the pupil referral unit from places like Eltham Green. Yeah. We did music courses.
One of the toughest, roughest schools in South East London. And so all of these classically trained people are being sent to all of these inner city schools like that, right? So we go into that placement. And obviously, I'm now at home. I recognize the kids. I understand the schools. I understand the language. I understand how to talk to them. And I've got this skill of technology. Yeah. So I'm able to go into a classroom and make a beat right in front of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Do you know what I mean?
Point. I'm able to take what the curriculum is saying, but interpret it through the music they love. Grime, hip hop, R&B, and say, so when we talk about this thing, you can hear it here. There was a song at the time, low, 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 low.
Oh, yeah. I know the one you mean.
Yeah.
Low. I can't remember what it is, but I know the one you mean.
So, for example, I would take that song and I'd say, so in music, one of the things that we talk about is pitch. One of the elements of music is pitch, and it's like high and low. We can see an example of that in this song where he's not just saying the words low, he's actually going low in his singing. He's going low, 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 low to wherever he ends up. And so you put the lyrics on the board and you do it with your marker as he's going low in a song that they already love. So you're playing a song they love, so you've got their attention straight away.
Right.
Because I know their music, because I listen to music. So suddenly I'm in my element. So we come back after the first placement and everybody's just a bit more humble. Because now they've gone into these inner city schools with their oboe and nobody gives a shit about your oboe. They don't give a shit about your oboe.
They will have been flailing with that oboe and the flute.
And so suddenly the dynamic shifts because it's like, oh shit, the thing that you've got is the thing that actually works in these schools. So there's a lot of shaken teachers.
Oh, I bet.
When we
shaken
came back
instead.
after the first placement, absolutely. And then suddenly I was able to start sort of finding my feet, particularly as we moved into the technology side of the module for the teaching qualification. And it became I was able to show my skill and I was able to maybe even teach sometimes some of the teachers, some of the things that I knew, but there was still that hierarchy and I couldn't wait to leave. I hated it.
Yeah.
I hated it, man.
I mean, I
felt so dumb. Imagine you're in a teaching qualification and you feel dumb.
But that is exactly how those systems make you feel. And actually what you've described is a perfect example of how Eurocentric the education system is from teacher training all the way through the actual education system, because the approach to music in your culture is made inferior.
Yes.
And therefore you are an outsider.
Yes.
And therefore this fantastic skill and form of excellence that you can bring to students who are hungry for the same, because there's it's relevant to the culture.
Yeah.
It's just overlooked systemically from the beginning.
And do you know what it makes me think? Like these teachers with that attitude are going to go into these inner city schools. What attitude are they going to give to those kids, those inner city kids, black kids, white working class kids who don't know anything about being a first chair violin?
You end up feeling incompetent.
Yeah.
I remember that going to Northern Ireland from Botswana, is I thought I was all right at music. I thought I was pretty good at singing. I thought I was pretty, and then I came into the first music lesson and I could not relate to notes on a stave.
Yep.
All the music to me felt like it was happening up in your head.
Yeah, rather than
whereas
here.
in my body, for me, music, everything had been something about feeling, body, rhythm. If I'm thinking, I can't make it make sense somehow.
No.
I cannot explain it, but it made me feel inferior and incompetent too. So the fact that you had that feeling and I had that feeling, that says a lot.
Yeah, and I've had it now as a student and as a teacher. Because I remember my music teacher, he gave up on me because, the way they taught music back then, this is like the 90s, mid-90s, it was like, all the classical composers, Mozart, Beethoven, Handel, whatever, and all of their dates of birth, their history, the courts that they played for, it was all very up
sterile
here.
And in your head.
And then, of course, the notation, this is a crotchet, quaver, semi-quaver, whatever, and it was all classical music. And I couldn't always get to grips with it because it was very different, like you said, to the music I know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was the beginnings of computer music. And we actually had Cubase on a computer in one of the other rooms. And he got to the point where it was just like, there's no point teaching you this because you're not going to get it. So you can just go to the computer room and just do that there. So while the other kids were being taught that stuff, I was just shunted off into the little computer room to do what he considered that nonsense over there.
Wow.
And he was like, you're not going to do well in music. There's no point. And here I am.
I mean, it's absolutely wild.
Because they hold your heart and your mind in their hands.
Yeah.
And that should be held with, I think, a little bit more care.
And reverence and respect.
Reverence, yeah.
There's not one way to do things.
No, there's not one way to learn either.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, we have covered so much ground in this episode, and I've actually loved hearing about it it's been really rich.
Yeah.
The teacher, the student, the teacher training.
Yeah.
I want to know what all of these experiences together to close us out have meant for, I guess, your philosophy around education and the experiences of Black people, because you're all Black, in the system. Like, how do you think about it?
Well, I feel as though Black history shouldn't just be 1 month.
Yeah.
Black history is global history.
Yeah.
All of us, I don't care who you are, all of us have been impacted by Black history. Even Asian people.
Yeah.
We can talk about Kenya and Uganda.
Yeah.
That's Black
and
history.
how we all ended up in that space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Black history is world history and should be taught as part of the regular history and the regular curriculum all year round. It's not subject specific, as you rightly mentioned. Also, it's African history. I feel like sometimes there's a disconnect between, I find that my people on the continent don't often know or appreciate Black history, particularly in the UK. They understand the big figures in America, but they don't understand our story. So they don't always understand why we have the complaints that we have and the critiques that we have. Because for them, it's just like, but you're abroad.
And you're in the land of milk and honey a lot of the time.
Yeah, you're in that land where, isn't it where money grows on trees and you've got a robust system and solid infrastructure and people pay on time and you get paid well. And
by the way, can I borrow some money?
And by the way,
that?
Yeah, exactly. You know, but they don't often understand that. So I think having our history taught in Africa, I think is important. It will help to bridge the gaps between us.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Bridge the divide. And I think outside of race, I don't feel like the education system is fit for purpose, full stop. For the basics, yeah, maths, literacy, science, and so on and so forth. Great, wonderful. You are going to have to supplement. And like I said at the beginning, it's not just Black people. If you're white working class, you also have to supplement.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you are just a white person in general, are they teaching you about your pagan roots?
Yeah. Oh, well.
And the stories of your great-great-great-great-grandmothers and great-great-great-grandfathers?
Whole nother episode.
Your religions before Christianity came, are they teaching you about that? I don't know, but it's worth diving in and getting some supplementary education. There are so many ways to get education now in this digital world that we live in.
Podcasts,
social media with the likes of Hillman Talk on TikTok, for example. There are things going on in your local area.
Yeah.
There are still people doing Saturday schools.
Yeah.
I know, for example, you've got Charmaine Simpson and she has Black History Talks, Black History Walks, and so on and so forth. So they're always doing stuff. You can take your kids there in London. There are so many ways to supplement your
Leeds
education.
One. Black History
Yes, there
Walks.
is.
Yeah, there's
with led by Joe Williams, who actually features in the Hidden Histories series that we produced for Audible. So there are so many ways to supplement your education, and I think it's a matter of urgency that we do that. Because if you rely on the government, you're just going to get a PR campaign.
I guess that's a good enough place to close out this episode. Love of learning, lifelong. We hope you've enjoyed learning with us here on this episode today. And if you have, please don't forget to comment, let us know what you thought, and of course, thank you in advance for subscribing. If you're on audio, please do consider leaving us a 5-star review.
Thank you so much.